Like a backstage pass to the world of fly fishing travel, this is Waypoints, the podcast of destination angling. News and events, helpful travel tips, destination profiles, great stories, and expert advice from some of the most seasoned and experienced names in fishing travel. Waypoints is brought to you by Yellow Dog Fly Fishing Adventures, the industry's #1 specialty travel company for the very best insider knowledge, logistical support, and trip preparation. Freshwater or saltwater, international or domestic, Yellow Dog has you covered for your next fishing adventure. And now, your Waypoints host, Yellow Dog founder and director, Jim Klug.
Most destination anglers are familiar with the name Jeff Currier, an angler who has developed a well-earned reputation for exploring distant waters and chasing exotic species in some of the most off-the-grid locations on the planet. Currier has worked in the fly fishing industry for over 35 years and has been fly fishing the world for over 45 years. He began his fly fishing career behind the counter at a fly shop in Jackson, Wyoming, where he worked for more than 20 years. Today, Jeff is a well-known artist, speaker, instructor, a prolific blogger on his website, jeffcurrier.com, and a regular presenter at fly fishing shows and events throughout the country. He currently serves in the advisory staffs for Winston Rods, Sims, Scientific Anglers, Yellow Dog, Costa Del Mar, Yeti, and several other companies. His greatest joy is helping folks catch fish by supplying simple, straightforward information and advice. Jeff has long been recognized as one of the nicest guys in all of fly fishing, and it's always great to get him on the program to share his insights and knowledge. On our recent trip to Bhutan, and in the second episode of our two-part Bhutan Mahseer series, I sat down with Jeff on location to discuss the logistics of our trip, the fishing, and why mahseer as a species should be on every destination angler's shortlist. Welcome to this episode of Waypoints, part 2 of 2 of our Bhutan River Chronicles. We are recording this live from the riverbank here in southern Bhutan during an epic 2-week trip. In part 1 of this series, we were joined by Bryant Dunn of Himalayan Fly Fishing Adventures, where he talked about his history, what it takes to set up an operation here in Bhutan, and he gave us a fantastic overview of the rivers and the species that are found here in this amazing kingdom. This episode, we are joined by legendary angler, international all-star Jeff Currier, a good buddy who is here with us on this trip. Jeff, welcome back to Waypoints. It's been a few years since you've done an episode with us.
Thanks, Klug. It's good to be here. Yeah, the move to Wisconsin kind of separated us a little, but yeah, we get together at the right time, the right place. And man, here in Bhutan, this is unbelievable.
We've had some good adventures together over the years, and this one is definitely the top of the list. We are nearing kind of the back end of this extended excursion, this river float, this trek throughout the kingdom, and it has been absolutely amazing.
It has been incredible, and I'm just glad we're doing a podcast so people can't see how beat up we look after, an 8-day float trip and traveling across the world. I mean, it takes its toll, but you know what? The reward is high, and I just love it over here.
We're looking a little gross right now. We've been living on the river for a week. Jeff and I both just had an amazing a lunch at this local village where, along with the entire cuisine they laid out, they surprised us with some Bhutanese death peppers, I think. I'm not sure what they called them, but of course, Currier and I were like, we got to eat these. We got to try it. And they lived up to their billing.
Yep, try everything. And, just if you're a little scared of it, like we kind of were, take a small bite because ghost peppers from around the world can take a toll.
So we got that going for us right now, which is good. Well, we've had an amazing 10 days here in Bhutan so far, and I wanted you to share with our listeners some of your thoughts and takeaways on this most recent adventure. To describe where we are out here on the riverbank. We are surrounded by huge Himalayan foothills. We're in a big river valley. There is bird life and wildlife everywhere around us. We got peacocks making noise in the distance. We've got all kinds of birds and animals around. Add to that, Jeff, kind of where we are and what we're looking at right here.
Well, I mean, a lot of people will ask, what's the deepest that you can get off the grid? That's a famous line nowadays. And most people abuse that word. But guess what? We are off the grid. I mean, spin the globe, go to the other side, and, there's Bhutan. And not only is it just that far away, but it's isolated because we're in the Himalayas. We're in the foothills of the Himalayas. And you don't get here easily. Like where we're at right now, you can't just hop in a plane. I mean, you could do a helicopter. That's about it. Or you float a river. And we floated a river to get here. And there's no cars around. I mean, like you said, the birds, the river. I mean, that's what we got. And to be honest with you, Jim, I'm in heaven.
You want to stay another 10 days, I can tell.
Easily. Jeez.
Well, that's good. Well, Jeff, this is your second trip to the Kingdom of Bhutan. You were here about 10 years ago on an exploratory trip. Tell us about your first experience over here.
Well, first time over here was, it wasn't my first Himalayan experience. I'd been here 3 times, so I was kind of expecting a very similar experience. I'd been to Nepal, been to India a few times, but it was different. This place truly is more isolated than those countries. And, you can see from the people, they haven't seen Westerners before, and especially at that time. And they were so friendly, and, they wanted their picture taken. You take a picture and show them. It was just really cool. But the other thing is they didn't understand mahseer. They know of this great fish, but they didn't know it was a great fish.
I mean, it's a sacred fish over here. It's a big part of Buddhist culture, but I don't think they were quite understanding why people would come over here with a bunch of fly rods and try to chase them around the kingdom.
Yeah, they had no idea. And I think, so that would be my first thing from my first time I came over. They're like, why are you guys over here? I was working for the World Wildlife Fund. I was on a special mission to help find mahseer in several different rivers so they could work to, put a stop to some dams that were coming in. And they had not a lot of luck finding mahseer, which is why I got lucky to get in the equation. And my experience paid off. We found a lot of fish. And we had help. There was some great people over here. But even those people were like, yeah, so we got mahseer. What's the big deal? And it's like, you know what? This is an amazing fish. And so now, coming back now, it seems like a couple things. One thing I'll tell you was really amazing. When I got to Pero last time, there was a lot of litter on the ground. I mean, which a lot of foreign countries, and I don't even notice it, honestly, when I go places, it's just the way it is. But that place has really been cleaned up. It's kind of fun talking to some people the other night that have been here, living here. They're like, yeah, that's the first thing we did was get this cleaned up, and the locals are behind it. They love it. But also the awareness of the mahseer. Like last time, it was a bunch of guys rowing boats. Like, what are they doing? Now these guys are like, they're really excited about it. They all have knowledge about it. And, we've caught a few beautiful fish this week, and they are excited. Like, I had a couple times the guys just wanted to come over that first night when I got the first day. They just we told them you can't be here, we're filming. But they're like, are you done filming? We want to touch it. I want to come over and see it. So that, to me, that's really exciting because the first step in, protecting a fish is to get the people behind it and love the fish, and they do love it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably a far different world than it was 10 years ago. You talked about how different it is in the cities. When we talked with Bryant in episode 1 of these Bhutan Chronicles, he mentioned that, Bhutan really is now ready for tourism. It's been a marked and concerted effort on the part of the kingdom to really open it up to Westerners, but to do it in the right way. But my biggest takeaway from being here these past couple of weeks is just how beautiful the country is, how friendly the people are, how amazing the culture and the sites are. I mean, we've done some incredible things, going to temples and monasteries, a lot of really unique cultural sites in addition to the fishing that we've been enjoying.
Yeah, I've been impressed. I was excited that we're doing that because when I came here last time, they wanted us to come over for, a week and chase mahseer. And I was like, listen, that's too short a period of time for me to come that far. And, they were sponsoring the trip, so who wouldn't turn it down? But, luckily the way I said that, they were like, okay, we'll add on some trout fishing. And I got to go trout fishing. It was awesome. But I didn't do the tiger's nest. I didn't go into Zong and Panaka. And it's really cool that Bryant set that up for us because the tiger's nest, my goodness, what an amazing, we're talking, we got off the plane and we went on a 4-mile hike. Doesn't sound like a big deal, except you throw in the almost 2,000 feet of elevation that we did up and down.
That's a proper climb.
That gets rid of jet lag, I would say. But the site itself was mind-boggling. I mean, we've seen cool things around the world. That's right up there with number one. And then the Zong. I mean, wow. It's just a lot of good stuff. And, for me, it's always like 75% of every trip I do is fishing. But I love that 25% I save to see amazing things. Wow. I'll see it every time I come over. And this, by the way, I'll be over here many more times. I love it.
It's pretty spectacular. Well, What are some of the changes, again, that you've seen in the last, between trip 1 and trip 2 10 years later, as far as the fishing goes? You talked about how the guides were now excited about the fish. They kind of got it about mahseer. But I would imagine that the level of guiding and the kind of the technical capabilities, all of that has been significantly elevated from the first time you were here.
Absolutely. When I came here 10 years ago, I essentially was the guide. I didn't know the rivers. I didn't know where we were going. But when we got to the water, they're like, okay, Curry, you've got experience in India and Nepal. What do we do? And, what I knew actually worked out pretty good. We caught some really nice fish. But now, Bryant he's him himself, probably one of the more knowledgeable people on mahseer in the world. And he's put up he's taught his crew about it as well. So now we're going down the river. I don't have to be like, over there, slow down. I mean, they know. And they take us to the right places. And they know when it's a good cast because they'll be like, hey, good cast, It's really cool that, you know what? These guys could guide Montana after about a week's work. These guys are really good.
They're good. They're good boatmen. They understand the technical aspects of fishing, and they've obviously come a long way. I mean, they're ready for Western anglers over here. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that if somebody's ready for a really wild experience, they could come over and be in good hands. They're going to catch something.
Well, we are sitting out here on this beautiful platform overlooking the river, and we just had a couple of drooks, which is the local beer. Drook
Thanks,
is
buddy.
the Bhutanese word for dragon. We got some Drook 11,000s that were just put in front of us. So I think we got to open these beers as we're talking here. Yeah, that'll do it. Just to make sure that we're well hydrated out here in the Himalayan jungles, right?
Not going to hurt my feelings.
No, I figured. Well, Jeff, I got to ask you specifically about the mahseer species. You have traveled all over the world chasing fish. I mean, you've made a career of it. And there's, few places you haven't been and haven't fished. I know for a fact you've fished in more than 60 different countries, and you have more than 450 different species that you've caught on a fly rod. I don't know if that's a world record. I don't know if there's anybody else that's doing it. I can't imagine there's anyone that's close to that. But you've seen a lot of things, and you've chased a lot of different fish. What is it about mahseer as a species that gets you excited as an angler? Because let's face it, a lot of people that don't know any better are thinking, oh, they're carp. What's the big deal? But talk to us a little bit about the draw of mahseer.
Well, I'm going to go back in time, something I don't think that you and I have ever talked about. When I was a kid, I was probably like 9 years old, just learned to read. And for Christmas, of course, your mom picks out the stuff for Dad and puts your name on it. Well, guess what I gave my dad? I gave him McLean's Encyclopedia of Fishing. My dad was a big fisherman. And I don't know if Dad read much into that book. He was working hard to raise a family, but I did. I know why the other kids were reading these corny little books from, second grade and third grade, and I did too. I had to, but I was going home thumbing through these pages, and I read a lot of that book. I was a fisherman at a young age. I was a maniac, and I remember reading this thing. Somehow I ended up in the M's. Everything was in order. Back then they didn't know there was a million different species of mahseer, but there was something in that 2 paragraphs about them that said they made luggage tags out of scales of mahseer.
They were so big.
They were so big. And my dad, he was, it was the first time he was doing business trips. And I just remember looking at a suitcase one day, and there's this stupid tag on there with a Sharpie written on there. I was like, Dad, you got to check this out. We should go fish for these things, and then you can make your luggage tag for your bag. And my dad was like, he said, what is wrong with my son? What is wrong with this kid? He's like, yeah, whatever. It's in India. You'll never go there.
Yeah, you'll never fish there.
Yeah, don't even talk about it. Nobody in our family's ever been, past Mexico or Canada. But so that always kind of sank into me my whole life. And, I made up my mind when I became an adult and I started traveling. I did Central America, South America, all the things that the travelers do when they're young. And I put, let's go for mahseer on the map. And I got a great wife, and, she's like, yeah, whatever, let's go to Asia, let's go to India, let's check it out. So, we spent, that trip was 3 months long and chasing mahseer. And I guess then I saw one. Let's just put it that way. That trip was really tough. We didn't see many, but when I saw it, it all came to life like, wow, this is truly one of the most gorgeous, prettiest, hard-fighting fish I've ever seen in my life. And I knew we got our ass. I'll just tell you right now, we got our ass kicked so bad. It was a do-it-yourself. I was, 30 years old.
Traveling in India.
India, yeah, riding the trains, riding the buses. I mean, caught every, stomach illness you can possibly get. I'm a skinny guy. I lost over 30 pounds that trip. It took a while to recover.
All in the name of chasing fish.
All in the name of chasing fish. But and I got to tell you something right out. We did not get a golden mahseer on the fly. We did. I caught a deacon mahseer. I caught carnetic carp, all in the same family, but they're much smaller. So, at least I got those. The last couple weeks of our trip, Granny had salmonella really bad. Of course, we didn't know that until we got home after she lost a lot of weight. But we ended up on this place called the Calvary in southern India, and we fished for, humpback silver mahseer with bait, which, you don't see Currier fishing a spin rod or anything very much, but we were just like, okay, we have to see some big ones. And, first day that we did the roggy ball on the bottom, we saw, I think we got, 4 fish that were 20 to 40 pounds. And then I got that appreciation. And they don't have a lot of goldens down there, but we got a golden. And finally got to set my hands on one. It was like a lifelong dream. It was cool. My dad was alive then, so I got great pictures. And, I joked about it with him over a couple beers, 3 weeks after we finally got home. And but I knew right then, I was like, I always joke that what India stands for. I never do it again. But I knew in my heart I was coming back. And, now here I am. This is my 5th trip to the Himalayas, and it's an amazing fish. Hopefully I make 20 trips before I die.
Well, describe for our listeners, Jeff, as an artist and an accomplished artist, how would you describe the golden mahseer, and for that matter, the chocolate mahseer, the 2 species we've been focusing on this week? We've found success with them over here. How would you describe to listeners what it's like holding a golden mahseer in your hand or a chocolate mahseer?
Well, first of all, I'll say that if you investigate this fish species, the first thing that usually comes up is that this is the world's largest carp. And we know how that goes over with most fly fishermen. Yeah. People are catching on. There's no doubt about it. But I'll tell you what, not many people over 50 are chasing carp on the flats. I think they're awesome. But this fish, despite being the largest carp, is not like your common carp. It is not like your mirror carp. It is not like a grass carp. This fish is its own type of carp. So it lives in heavy moving water. So we're in the Himalayas, less than 200 miles from here, we have a 20,000 foot peak. And, we're at like 2,000 feet right now, maybe even lower. I don't know. So you can understand that the rivers are moving fast. This fish lives here.
Well, one thing, not to interrupt you on that, but I learned on this trip, Bhutan as a country is only 90 miles from its northern border to its southern border. It's not a big country. But in that distance, it drops 25,000 feet. Think about the gradient and the runoff, and therefore how powerful these rivers are. And this is the home of the mahseer.
Think about swimming against that, and this fish does it. So we got an unbelievably powerful fish that migrates up through these rivers, sometimes several hundred miles. Also, this fish has to be strong because a lot of times they spend time in countries that are, not as developed as the USA, and they're in danger. When they're in northern India on some jungle river hanging out, they could get in a net. If they get caught in bait, they're not going home. So what they go through, beyond the swimming upstream is mind-boggling. And then you catch the fish and you look at the fish. It looks, it is carp-like. You're like, wow, this thing just punished a big streamer in a rapid and then smoked me, into my backing like a tarpon does in Belize. And we ran and tripped over rocks. I got 2 bloody knees. And then we pulled out a net and just threw the net in the shore and started laughing because it wasn't big enough. They don't make nets big enough. A musky net is, barely going to do it here. Probably not. And when you pull the fish out of the water, a lot of times this water is off color because you're in the Himalayas. And, one rain 100 miles upstream or, wherever, it gets muddy. So you look at the fish in the water, it looks like a normal fish. You pick it out, and there's the gold. It is a gold nugget. Now, this fish, like a 40-incher, has, probably only 25 scales going down the lateral line. So they're big, the size of quarters, maybe even bigger. And other than the ones in the middle that are usually pretty dark, almost it's undescribable color. You would say black at a glimpse, but it's, it's iridescent. And the rest of it is gold, like little gold nuggets. You can't get your eye off the fish, and you just can't get your hands off it. And I know you guys are taking pictures of that one I got the other day, and I'm just like, Currier, pay attention. I'm like, oh, yeah, sorry. I was just looking at the fish again. You just can't stop. They're unbelievable. You have to see it to believe it. There's a lot of things in the world you can be described, and then when you actually see it, you're like, wow, that's 100 times better than it was described. That's a mahseer.
And as far as fly fishermen and kind of what they're after, what is it that makes the mahseer so special? The waters that they inhabit, the way they hit a fly, the way they fight. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I think most fly fishermen, not all, it's changed, but most fly fishermen stem from trout fishing and moving water in a river. And you have that here. The difference is that at midday, it's, 85 to 100 degrees. The river looks the same, but it's warm water. And, normally we're chasing a trout that's, over to the side of the river running a seam. Trout aren't here, but the golden mahseer are in the same spots. But the real difference and the draw for most fly fishing should be the fact that a small mahseer is going to be 20 inches. Your average is probably going to be 30. If you get a big golden, it's going to be, something you've never seen before. And, we kind of skipped over something I should throw in here right now. We're not just fishing golden mahseer. In fact, the majority of the fish on the river run right here are chocolate mahseer. And they are abundant. So goldens don't come easy. We've only caught, 3 or 4 this whole trip. But we've probably caught, 50, 60 of the chocolate mahseer, which is a typical trout number, only these things. Oh, man, do they fight. And, I got a 12-pounder yesterday.
Gorgeous fish.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
We've got several fish this week over 5-6 pounds. I mean,
so strong.
Unbelievable.
And the colors of these chocolate mahseer
undescribable.
We talked about that in episode 1 with Bryant, but I mean the greens and the blues along the dark flanks of these fish are absolutely spectacular. The gill plates and the cheekbones and the eyes of these fish, they're about as gorgeous as anything you will see anywhere in the world of fly fishing. I don't care if you're saltwater or freshwater. These are special creatures.
Yeah, and I'm going to paint one of those chocolates. The eyeball is like no other fish. It's orange with a double black ring around. It's like, that probably doesn't make sense to people, but eyeballs of fish, they vary a little bit, but this thing is trippy, man. An orange eyeball. I mean, come on. I can't even wait to get my hands on my art and get this thing together. It's going to be a project.
Well, what would you compare these fish to? If you were to say, when you go fishing for mahseer in Bhutan, it's very similar to what? How would you kind of compare them as far as the world of fly fishing goes?
I would say hands down an Atlantic salmon. And I guess the 3 reasons. Number 1, they're very hard to catch. Even though they're there, doesn't mean you're going to get them. Even if you're in the middle of the migration, which, we're trying to do this week. We haven't caught many of the goldens. You
got to pay your dues.
You got to pay your dues. And again, the chocolates that I just mentioned, they're much easier to catch. The gold mahseer is a different thing. Like I would tell people if they were doing this river, go over, have a great time catching chocolates and hope you catch one golden. That would be like going on a salmon trip to Iceland. Hope that you get a bunch of sea run browns, maybe a couple small grills, but hope that you get one donkey of an Atlantic salmon. And they take very similar too. I mean, it's a lot of times on the swing of your fly in like the most rapid current that you can imagine. You're almost like giving up on the spot. You're like, no way does a fish live there. And all of a sudden you go tight, and then you better hold on for dear life. And that would be the next thing. The fight is just like an Atlantic salmon. I'm no Atlantic salmon expert, let me tell you that right now, but I have been very fortunate to fish some of the prime spots around the world for them, and they kick your butt, and a mahseer is right there. You better have some backing, you better have some patience, you better know how to fight a big fish.
Well, describe to me what you've been fishing this week as far as kind of your setup, and then talk a little bit about your techniques, how you are approaching every piece of water on this river, and basically how you're fishing these different sections.
Yeah, so I'm tossing my 9-weight, which is heavy on most of the chocolate mahseer, but at the same time, I get them in fast. That's great. But for a big mahseer, I can't be messing around with my 7-weight or 6-weight because you're doomed if you get a big golden. So 9-weight rod. I have my floating rod rigged up. I haven't used it much this week because we've had some weather every night, so the water's been raising a little bit. But I think if I was here, we have 4 of us fishing, and I got lucky in the first day and got that big fish, so I've been staying back. But for me, if I was waking up in the morning as the first angler, I'd fish my floating line very close to shore with not a big streamer. I know we're talking 20 to 40 pound fish. We could get something bigger. It could happen, but one of the mistakes I made when I made that 3-month trip years ago was I was fishing like tarpon flies. It made sense. I'm fishing for, a 3 to 5 foot long fish. I should be fishing big flies. They like small stuff. I've dropped back to like size 8, 6, and 4 sculpin patterns. That's what works. But so I would fish my floating line to start, but once the sun rises, once you make a pass, the fish move into deeper water. So I have a 250 grain line that I've been fishing, jig type flies, heavy clousers. Yep, exactly. Sink tip, and fishing off those drop offs with that. But leader wise, I'm not a record hunter. It's funny I said that because years ago I had the mahseer record on fly, only because my friend registered. But nowadays I fish straight 30-pound test in my clouser fly. And the reason for that is, somebody, well, is that even fair? Yeah, when you hook your mahseer, you'll realize it's very fair, because if you don't, you're going to get schooled. I mean, I came a long way, and I just told you how beautiful the fish is. I want to hold one. And when they smoke you down into a rapid and they wrap you around boulders, I have a little better chance of landing that fish. So yeah, 9 weight, you need a floating, you need a sinking line, and some good strong fluorocarbon tip at 25 to 35 pound. And your trout flies, your best streamers. The one thing though, be careful on the hooks. Make sure your hooks are strong. Store-bought streamers, some of them are not good enough.
We've straightened some hooks this week.
We have straightened some hooks. To stop a fish and go under a rapid, you're going to put a lot of pressure on them. And, it's hard to find if you don't tie flies, or if you don't, find some good, solid bass or pike flies, or even saltwater flies in that size range, you're going to bend a few. It's just the way it is. But, catch a fish, check it, and make sure it's, ready to go again.
Absolutely. So do me a favor, do our listeners a favor, and kind of walk us through this expedition that we've been on, this river float. Talk to us about kind of a standard day. What is camp like, waking up in the morning, approaching the day? What does that look like as part of this adventure?
So we camp on very prime spots. And what a prime spot is for mahseer, whether it's golden or chocolate, is where any sort of tributary comes into the river. So imagine we had a huge rainstorm last night. The river got really muddy, which happens. And by the way, don't panic, because at this grade, it gets clear as fast as it gets muddy. So you wake up, you're like, oh my God, my trip's ruined. It's not. It's going to clear up unless it keeps raining. But we try to camp on these tributaries that are coming, east or west, and so they're not, as affected by this rain as much. And usually it's clear water. It's always a different temperature, even if it's not clear, and it attracts the fish. So cool morning for me is, I'm getting chill in my old age, I guess. I'm getting up, drinking a cup of coffee in the lawn chair at about 5:45 comes around, which, by the way, you can't fish any earlier than that. They have regulations over here. I mean, that blows people away. It's like they have regulations. And
Bhutan, they're very strict about their fishing hours. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's sunrise to sunset. So sunrise has been about 5:30, and, you can get right in the water at that time. Do it with caution, and, fish in front of camp. Usually we fish in front of camp for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then have breakfast. And while we're having breakfast, they're packing up camp. And when you finish, you hop in the boat and you fish from the boat. And these are short floats. These are not like Montana, Wyoming, Idaho floats where you're doing 10 miles and you're casting on the boat all day long. You milk it, which I love. So you get out, you methodically fish a run. These are huge back eddies. So you can fish one side of the river and then put the raft and the other side, row up, and then fish the other side. It's kind of cool. Or you see a great spot, you hop out of the boat and fish it. We try. This is remote, so we're not going to fish till dark from the boats. We roll into camp at 4 o'clock, and just like I said, you fish in the morning, you roll into camp, get your rod, and, talk to your friends and split up the tributary again and try to catch fish. It's funny because tributaries usually are really good. We've had a tough week as far as tributaries. We've caught most of our fish in the boat, but it's not always that way.
Yeah. And one of the things that we did not talk about with Bryant in episode 1, but these mahseer are way spookier than you would think. They live in this violent environment in these fast-moving rivers. There's always tons of stuff going on, but they're really sensitive to angling pressure, to noise, to boat traffic, to waiting around. So you never just charge out there and start flogging the water.
Yeah, I'll give you my ichthyology point of view. Lateral line is how fish protect themselves. They pick up vibrations. A trout has a very small lateral line because the scales are small. But they still they rely on their eyesight. Well, mahseer, if the water's off color, they can't see that well. So their scales are huge. The lateral line scales on a 20-kilo fish would be like $50, just monster. So they can feel vibrations, they can feel everything, and if it is clear enough and they go in those clear spots, they can see you. So they got the whole package of like, I'm not messing around. I just see something that doesn't look right up there or a bad cast. Yeah. And also these fish were casted to. If you're going for a 15-pound mahseer, he's probably been 50 miles downstream in India, and who knows what he's escaped. He knows the net. He knows people. He knows his friends have died. And that sounds stupid. People are like, fish don't have friends. Yeah. You know what? You know why I catch a lot of fish? Because I do respect their fish's intelligence. So, yeah, they're smart. They're not going to mess around. So you really have to come here with your game face. If you sneak up on a brown trout that's rising under a willow, okay, you got a chance. But now double how cautious you have to be to catch a mahseer.
Yeah, you got to bring your A game.
Yes.
No doubt about it. Well, you have kind of traveled all over the world, as we talked about chasing fish, but you and I have talked many times about how you have kind of personally been drawn to the Himalayas. And you and I have done a number of trips over here over the years. It seems to me that you've developed a real connection to this area. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the number one would be like when I was 9 years old, Dad said, you're never going there. And I went, and I loved it. Number two, yeah, coming back, I've always been attracted to the jungle, to warm weather and big challenges with a fishing rod. And this place really gives that. And, for me, like we're sitting here in a T-shirt, 7 o'clock at night, I'm listening to a lot of birds. I'm listening to all kinds of cool stuff. The river's in the background. If I go down the shore, I can hear the river. It's, it's my comfort place. I really love it. And there's a very strange attachment I have here, too, is, a lot of people know about it, but I almost lost my life here in 2008. And you're probably thinking, wow, you almost drowned or, Currier did something really stupid. I didn't do anything stupid. I ran into a tiger, and it was a tiger that we would later find out, 6 months later, it did take down a few people. I saved my own life by using the sixth sense, and, most people can't even fathom what I'm talking about, but I just felt the presence of this animal. And that whole day, before I even saw it, I just felt the presence. It's like I felt like it was like part of the land. I almost became part of the land. But I pulled it off and, saw the tiger face to face, and he let me go. And I just feel like, man, this is kind of a home away from home. And it's so exotic, and I'm attracted to exotic stuff. I mean, it's just this place. I mean, I've been so excited for the last 2 months that we're coming here. I mean, it's like, been a lot of places. I don't do backflips the night before I go to Mexico, to be honest with you. But a month ago, I was for this trip. I mean, this is cool. I feel good. You know what? I also, Jim, I have a lot of friends here. It's amazing. Originally it was, my first trips over here. It was just me and Granny, but then I met Misty Dillon. And then you and I came over, Misty, and we fished with Bobby Sapple. And we're here this week with Bobby. And it's like he feels like he's my brother, my very younger brother, by the way. And Jigme, my first time I came to Bhutan, Jigme was our host. And, not a guy, he didn't know anything about fly fishing. Now he's a great fly fisherman.
And on the trip with us this week.
Yeah, he's with us this week. It's like I'm with my little brothers. I mean, it's just, I got a really good connection over here. I feel like I could get off the plane and pretty much anywhere in the Himalayas, and my friends are going to be there like, Curry, you're back. Let's go whack some fish. It's a good feeling to have.
It is. You're clearly comfortable over here, both with the fishing, but also with the people and the culture. It's always fun to travel with you over here, no doubt about it. Let me ask you this. Who is this trip best suited for? What kind of angler would enjoy and appreciate this adventure?
I would say somebody that has experience. And you know what? You don't have to be a great fisherman, but when I say experience, I think you have to understand, where you're at as an angler, and like if you're a great angler and you've caught all kinds of fish around the world, this is a place you want to go. But even if you're an angler that hasn't been a lot of places, but you're attracted to the Himalayas, maybe everybody's seen Everest stories and stuff. We're not doing Everest; we're much lower, but and you want to go to the Himalayas, you can still do it. But you need to realize that this fishing is difficult. They don't jump on the line. The chocolates are fairly easy, but the goldens, if you come over here and you're a beginner, you're probably not going to catch a golden mahseer. I'm just going to lay it out there right now. Don't come if that's what your heart's set on until you get really better at your fishing. It could happen, but the chocolates will be there. The experience is going to be unbelievable. If you're an advanced angler that's been everywhere, then this might be the place. This might be something to put on your list. I mean,
but we talked about this with Bryant in episode 1. It's expeditionary fishing, especially these multi-day float trips. You got to, be okay being out in the jungle wilderness in the Himalayan foothills. You got to be okay camping and, sleeping on the ground in tents, with great equipment, no doubt. But, it's not a trip for everyone, but for those that really appreciate adventure. And as you said in the very beginning of this episode, truly being off the grid, this one's tough to beat.
Yeah, you have to. I'll throw in the physical too. Thanks for saying that to get me steered the right way. I mean, this is, if you're not willing to walk, if you're not able to cross a rock bed, which you have to portage on this trip, which was a gnarly walk through some rocks, then it's probably not the trip for you. I mean, don't put yourself in a position to be miserable just because you feel like you have to catch a mahseer. Be honest with yourself, and get in shape. I'm not a youngster like I used to be, and
none of us are.
And we just did all those damn sports shows, so it was hard to stay in shape. But I went to the gym every single morning before the fly fishing shows. The last few weeks I've been riding my bike, and I'm not like in great shape by any means, but I'm in better shape than I was, in January, and it's made a difference this week, and I think it's given me the ability to catch more fish. So there's a lot of grit needs to be put into this trip. And if you don't got it, you shouldn't be here. If you got it, then go for it.
Well, that's perfect. Any closing thoughts for us here, Jeff?
Whew, man.
It's been a great week. Been a great 10 days out here.
It's been a heck of a week, man. It's been really fun. It's been really fun to work with you and Chris again. We've done some cool trips around the world, made some films, and I know this isn't like an F3T film or something, but we're doing some great stuff for the website and the catalog, and it's been really fun. And it's been, one of my highlights this week, I'll just tell you right now, has been meeting Bryant. Bryant and I have been connected for 20 years, and we've not fished together. And yesterday we spent a whole day in the boat. We spent a whole week together. It's been wonderful. And Bobby, young Bobby
G.
2013, Bobby, when we were fishing the Saryu in India.
He was a kid.
Yeah, it was like,
yeah.
Okay, I don't want to be mean, like, get away from me, kid, you're bothering me, but...
He was a kid. He was brand new. He was a guide apprentice getting started.
Yeah, it was like, here's what we're going to do. I'm actually going to be in charge here, and you're going to sit by my left side because I'm a right-handed caster, and you're going to watch. And you know what I love about him? He did. He learned, and now he's like one of the authorities of mahseer in the world.
Well, he's like the most accomplished mahseer fisherman in the world. He has multiple IGFA line class records for mahseer. He's the man.
It makes me so friggin' excited and proud. And then Jigme, Jigme he's a local guy here from Thimphu. He's just a sweet person. I met him on my trip here in 2014, and me and Mike Dawes taught him how to fly fish. And now he's rowing the boat in the whitewater
and throwing heat.
This
guy's
chucking
loose.
it.
Yes,
he's chucking it.
He is a hell of an angler.
Yeah, both guys are throwing their 2 cents out there. We come into a run, what we should do, and I love that, because a lot of times, when I'm fishing somewhere, people just shut up and they don't say anything. These boys are helping me catch fich this week.
It's been like the dream team of mahseer knowledge and angling skill this week. So much angling prowess has shown up on this trip, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be a part of it and watch it. It's really, really been neat.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm bummed we only have 2 days left. Doggone it.
Well, we'll be back.
Yep, we will.
We know we will. And I would tell you, if you've listened to these last 2 episodes of the Bhutan River Chronicles, check out more photos on the website. You can go to yellowdogflyfishing.com. We've got pages of information about fly fishing in Bhutan. If you don't follow Jeff Currier's blog, I would encourage you to check that out. Jeff is a prolific writer who documents every single day of these trips and puts it out there. How can people find that?
Just jeffcurrier.com.
Yeah.
Or you probably type in Currier, Bhutan, golden mahseer, Jim Klug, yellow dog. You're going to
all come up.
It's going to come up. And,
Yeah.
on the blog, they get to see some of your amazing photos too, which I thank you for. It's just what you guys do this week is just mind boggling. I mean, I'm not there with a phone every once in a while, and I'm still using a camera, folks. A waterproof camera in case I fall overboard.
Yeah, like the old school one around your neck. I love that about you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't, in case I catch something crazy and everybody's like, what did you catch? I'm going to have a picture of it. A new species, man.
Well, we've also been producing what we call a field report this week. And so there'll be about a 30-minute film about this whole adventure and this expedition we've been on. You can find that on Yellow Dog YouTube TV. So definitely check that out. You will meet Jigme and Bobby and Bryant and see everyone in person. It's a really fun project. And this has been great, Jeff. So thanks so much for talking with me. As always, thanks for sharing your knowledge and insights with our listeners. We've done a lot of great trips together over the years, and this is yet another one. So this has been great.
You know what we need to do next?
What's next?
Work on our mustache.
Like Bobby G.
Yeah,
oh my
Bobby
God.
G.
Go check out the video. You want to see a proper mustache. That is Bobby G's Indian stash.
I'm on it.
Next level. Next level. Well, that is it for this episode of Waypoints, recorded live on the banks of the great river here in southern Bhutan with Bryant Dunn and our friends from Himalayan Flyfishing Adventures. Be sure to join us for our next episode, and remember that no matter where you fish and no matter where you find yourself, no one ever regretted a life of adventure.
This has been another episode of Waypoints, the podcast of fly fishing travel and adventure angling. Waypoints is produced by Brian Gregson, with music provided by the Steep Canyon Rangers. Visit yellowdogflyfishing.com for more destination profiles, travel news, and expert advice, and be sure to join us for our next episode.